Well, happy Earth Day, Earth Week, Earth Year. Earth is our home, and this is a day and a week that we take to really remember that and try to give back to the planet that gives all of us life. In creating habitat for pollinators or restoring lost prairie habitat, we're doing favors for the planet, even through vegetable gardening or growing fruits in our yards or in our neighborhoods. This is all good. So as we continue with our pollinator project and our prairie restoration project, we're going to be doing good things for our planet and carrying the spirit of Earth Day throughout the entire year. As we check in on our seedlings this week, our plants are getting definitely taller. Instead of just those 2 leaves they started with, they're getting 4. And these little seedlings are the seedlings of a very tall plant called the Mexican sunflower. Its genus is TITHONIA. Because of this, I'm going to need to thin out the extra plants. This bothers some people sometimes. Bothers me sometimes. But if I don't take out one, neither one of them will make it. So this process is called thinning out, and it leaves enough resources for one of our plants to do well. Enough soil, enough sunlight, and enough water. So that's the beginning. We'll check some of our other plant starts. Now those previous 2 Mexican sunflowers were in my east window, which doesn't have the best light. These 3 are in my south window, which does have the best light, but it just goes to show this has a plant that is not a Mexican sunflower. This has no seedling at all, but here we have one. So don't be discouraged if your seed doesn't come up. Sometimes these things happen, and we just replant. We talked about thinning plants out, and this is what happens if you don't. This cilantro was planted far too many seeds in one place, and it's what we call leggy now, like a leg, leggy. It's very tall and not very strong. So it's reaching, all these little sprouts are reaching for the light, and there are just too many of them in there. These are cilantro sprouts too, so they don't need to go to waste. Sprouts in a restaurant are just these tiny beginnings of plants, and I'm gonna go ahead and eat this one now because the flavor of cilantro is very good. Check out that tiny leaf, you can see its beginnings. And a sunflower of the Heliopsis genus is doing well too. My only concern here is we may have started it too early. In our part of Ohio, sunflowers don't generally get planted outside until after the middle of May. So if I can keep this one alive for 3 more weeks, it should be okay. I just hope it doesn't get too tall for its pot. And the last one we'll look at today is our marigolds. You can see that they've grown leaves beyond their first 2 leaves, and they have these little serrated edges. They're starting to get the shape of typical marigold leaves. They're leaning in, and to be safe, I probably need to thin these out too. I count 4 plants. Probably need to get it down to 2 plants. So gently pull one out. For now, I'll leave it at 3, although I know I'll have to get rid of at least 1 more of those. So we've started our plants inside, but when can I transplant my plant to the outside? The time to plant outside depends greatly on our average last frost date, because frost can damage tender young plants very easily. The average last frost date for Cleveland, Ohio is May 4th. But mind you, this is an average. Sometimes the last frost is in April, Other times it's as late as May 26th. Because of this, we need to be careful. Some crops don't mind a little cold weather, but most of our favorite garden plants do. So when do I usually plant my summer crops? Usually mid-May, but I pay close attention to the weather report and notice what the low temperatures are overnight. Some crops actually do very well in cool weather and don't mind the frost at all. A lot of our hardy green vegetables do really well. Broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage. I also start peas at this time of year and potatoes, and all of these do quite well in the cool weather. We call them cool weather crops. You can check this chart for a few other options. Most of our favorite summer vegetables, though, and a lot of the flowers we're starting, are warm weather plants. So in addition to all the vegetables on this list, sunflowers and things like this also do best without the frost. So wait until at least mid-May, that's 3 weeks from today, before transplanting. And if the weather report for the extended looks good, you're probably okay. That's when I usually plant my garden. However, if there's cool temperatures in the 30s overnight or any warnings of frost, go ahead and wait. You know that by Memorial Day weekend, you'll be just fine.